Resident Evil 2 Remake released, it was to mostly critical acclaim. People, like myself, loved the gunplay and environment, and while the story wasn't the best, it still was a great reimagining of a survival horror classic. It left a lot of people wanting to experience a remake of Resident Evil 3, the sequel which included Jill Valentine from Resident Evil 1. So it was great news when Capcom announced a remake of Resident Evil 3, the same gunplay as 2 with an all-new mechanic, dodging. People were excited to experience this, and with all the complaints of the length of the story, I'm sure Capcom wanted to fix that with this game. Oh, what's that? It's shorter than Resident Evil 2. Oh, well, I'm sure the side oh, there's none? Huh. Yeah, shockingly, people don't respond well to short games priced at $40. It generally takes around 3 to 4 hours to finish the game, which you could argue is how much Resident Evil 2 took to beat, but keep in mind there were 4 routes you could play as, not even considering all the side content for that game. Reading the reviews on Steam, a lot of people's complaints boil down to how long it takes to beat the game, and considering that, all of the cut content from the original game. So let's take a look at Resident Evil 3, and see what went wrong and right with this game, judging if it truly deserves the black sheep title of the remake trilogy so far. Now, I'm going to preface this review by again stating I haven't played the original, so unfortunately I can't offer much insight into what was removed. But I'll leave a link in the description for videos that do offer that point of view. I'll be primarily basing the game on its own merits this time. Alright, so we do need a bit of context before we continue. If you haven't played Resident Evil 1, Jill Valentine is one of the main characters from that game. She is a part of the STARS operative, standing for Seriously Tough Asses Reaching Something. No, I'm just kidding, that's not what it means. It actually means Special Tactics and Rescue Service. Essentially, they're the FBI of the Resident Evil universe. In the events of Resident Evil 1, they were sent in to investigate a local populace issue regarding cannibalism within the Arklay Mountains. In there, they found a mansion, which housed some friendly allies inside, as well as flesh-eating zombies. They later discovered that the pharmaceutical company, Umbrella Corporation, was behind all of this. To sum it up, the T-virus that the Umbrella Corporation was working on leaked out into the surrounding area, causing the zombies and infected dogs. The place was set to blow up, so everyone left on a helicopter, forever haunted by that mansion. Now, in the Resident Evil 3 remake, the game opens up with a montage of, I believe, are videos from actual incidents that Capcom just took and used, spliced with Umbrella talking about their commitment to humanity. As he finishes talking, you can see that they're working on something in Umbrella, a Nemesis. Here we cut to Jill waking up from her bed, collecting herself, then heading into the bathroom where Jill, that's not how you brush your teeth, silly! Waking up, it's clear that she's still haunted by the nightmares of that night in the mansion. You can see she has boards set up in her room, trying to connect the dots on the pharmaceutical company. I like the inspiration the game takes from Resident Evil 7, as this opening part takes place entirely in first person. Also, fun fact, it turns out that the original Resident Evil was originally supposed to be made in first person, but due to hardware limitations they had to change it to a fixed camera perspective. Continuing, Jill figures out how to brush her teeth, leaves the bathroom, and gets a phone call from a friend. It's Barry. He also was in that mansion with Jill. He pleads for her to get out of there fast before... This guy's name is Nemesis, a bioweapon developed by, you guessed it, Umbrella, to kill all STARS operatives, as a countermeasure to prevent them from leaking that Umbrella is responsible for this. Ah, finally. A game that truly represents the male gamer fantasy. Beating up a woman. To be honest, I love this opening scene. It sets up just how strong and how much this Nemesis guy fucking hates your guts. Although if he had just stopped ore farming for 1 second, I'm sure he would have done his job to kill Jill, but then the game would be even shorter, so I'll excuse it for now. But get your shit together, Nemesis. We're pushed out of the building by an explosion. Luckily, Nemesis' strongest enemy, Rubble, appears, blocking his ability to pursue us further. We make our way down the alley until we run into Brad. He seems strangely chill and relaxed about the situation, given that he's also being hunted down by an 8-foot-tall psychopath, and the city is literally collapsing. Well, fortunately, it seems the Rubble has stopped Nemesis for now. Guess he won't bother us ever again. We continue down to see the disaster unfolding before us. People running and screaming in the streets. Zombies now walking amongst the living. It's almost like Jill's nightmares come to life. We run into a safe room with Brad falling behind us. And then he gets bit! Oh no, Brad. I loved you so much. And you were my favorite. Anyway, we continue out the building and down another alley where we get a gun and see a zombie coming down towards us. But I'd rather save my ammo for now, so I just take off running. While we're running for our life, a helicopter spots us and tells us to head up to the parking garage roof. So that's where we go. But we have to cross a few buildings to get there, and here's where I talk about something that I find intriguing. People like to criticize characters in fictional media for acting dumb, such as Dario Rosso. Walking in, he quickly runs into the back of a storage crate and shuts it, locking himself inside. I've watched a few live streams where people claim that he's being idiotic.
Any food in there? No! It's just a big steel box! Oh, have fun. That fucking guy's gonna get hungry in like 30 minutes and go out and venture to go find like a hamburger wrapper and get fucking killed.
Which I do agree he is. But when it comes down to it, how would you react given the situation? Who truly knows how the infection spreads? How would you know it wasn't just an airborne virus? If you were already infected, I'd maybe rather just die inside a storage crate, with no hope to turn and kill anyone. I think that while, yes, it is irrational, that's kind of the point. He's not meant to be the voice of reason. He represents a large amount of the populace. Everyone's scared, running for their lives right now. People have no clue what's going on, and so they'll act out of character. Everyone's got a plan until a zombie apocalypse punches them in the throat. Regardless, we join Jill back on top of that parking garage roof, where we see the happy helicopter humorously hoisting himself up. We take to going to him. Looking like we'll finally get out of this mess. Damn, Jill. It is not your day, huh? Noticing Nemesis slowly approaching, Jill decides in her everlasting wisdom to ram a car into him. Guess she took a harder hit to the head than I thought. They fall off the building and it looks like Nemesis is gonna get her for good. Except he's walking so slowly and ore farming so hard. But it's cool as hell, so I'll allow it. Then, a mysterious man shoots a rocket launcher at Nemesis, to which he just flings it in a different direction. He must have used all of his strength on that one, because another immediately knocks him down for now. The man introduces himself as Carlos and brings us down to the subway to meet with his leader. The leader recognizes us as a member of STARS and tells us that he needs our help. This tram can't move without a destination being routed, and the destination can't be routed until we turn the power on at the electrical substation, so we're sent out to do just that. Now that we're out, I can discuss my thoughts on the gameplay, and it's exactly the same as Resident Evil 2! Except one thing, the new dodge mechanic. Pressing space on keyboard, RB on Xbox or PlayStation, will allow you to roll out of danger. I think it's a cool mechanic which allows you to conserve ammo, with it also tying well into the story, as she is a trained agent, so it makes sense she'd be able to do these things. And as you can tell, I am very clearly the best at it. Yep, no issue whatsoever. The greatest. Anyway, I talked a lot in the previous video about the balancing of survival horror. How too much can be an issue, and how too little supplies are incredibly limiting. Weirdly, I feel like the balancing of the ammo economy in this game is so fucked. It jumps from having too much ammo, unsure of how to use it all, to a room full of enemies where you have like one bullet. It's incredibly frustrating, and I even played it on standard too. My previous runs were hardcore and it's even worse there. I remember being stuck in the labs for like an hour. It's like, do you want me to use ammo or not? Let me get something straight. It could very well be a skill issue. However, a game like Resident Evil prioritizes smart ammo usage, where you can't just mow down a row of enemies without the repercussion of having no ammo to use. But the reason why it works in that game is because they don't have literally 12 zombies chasing you down in this tiny corridor with you unable to move past them. You could argue that's what the dodge mechanic is for, testing your skill. But it would be quite difficult to dodge past them all, and good luck doing that because you'll still end up being bit, as dodging can still cause you to get grabbed by another zombie ahead. I'm getting way too ahead of myself, but that's why I despise the design in both the RPD and the hospital, with having too many enemies and not enough bullets. Sometimes you're required to clear out said zombies, but again you won't have enough ammo, especially because these enemies were designed to be bullet sponges. It just comes across as an incredibly rushed and unoptimized game ammo-wise. To drive it home, there will be multiple times in this game that there's more than 5 zombies in a small area, and maybe 30 rounds of assault rifle ammo. If you're smart, smart and use it wisely, you can kill 2 zombies, with maybe another one with their leg shot off. Now you're down with no ammo, with 2 or more left and forced to either tank the damage or dodge past. You're especially screwed if you have to come back there over and over again. Again, getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to discuss this as it still comes across slightly in the gameplay throughout this part. Not as bad as later ones, but still sometimes it can be a bit much. Anyway, after doing some exploring and light puzzle solving, we encounter an umbrella agent bleeding against the side of a car, with us offering to help him. But before we can do anything, someone shows up and puts a bullet into his head. Jill is rightfully upset, but the man claims he was infected, and then questions Jill's lack of self-preservation, an aspect that will continue to pop up with the duo. Exiting the building, we make our way down the alley into an area fenced off, zombies on the other side of it. We also get a taste of another enemy type, the infected dogs, from Resident Evil 2 and Claire and Leon's stories. They work like how they do in that game. Not too difficult to dodge, and they tend to die in 2 to 3 shots. After making her way through though, Jill enters the electrical substation. And as she enters, she is... can I show this on YouTube? Essentially, she is infested with maggots, and the only solution is to eat the green herb, which she will puke them out, restoring her health and making sure she doesn't recreate the scene from Alien. We have to power on 4 circuit breakers to restart the power and restore electricity back to the tram station. So we do just that, all the while being chased at by these bugs. So far, I'm enjoying the enemy variety on stage. The zombies are your typical low-level threat, but in bunches they can attack, and the bugs act the same. On their own, very easy to kill, but have 4 of them chasing you down, and it won't be fun. Leaving the substation, oh no, Nemesis appears again. Who could have seen this coming? This is the first taste of what he brings for a few sections of this game. And if you try to distance yourself from him, the motherfucker locks in and starts chasing you down like resellers when the Pokemon cards get restocked. It's really the biggest leg up he has on Mr. X. Where X would just slow walk towards you, it feels like Nemesis is an expansion of that, as he can take off and chase. Sometimes it's frustrating when there's additional enemies in the way, such as zombies or those fucking tentacle things. Again, getting ahead of myself. It is such a shame the way Nemesis gets shafted in this game, as you can make such a good pursuer enemy out of him. We have to make our way down to the subway station, mapping the route to Fox Park so the train can start moving. Leaving the room, a new enemy type appears, adding further variation. And here's where I could talk about dodging more. I have no clue how to dodge these kinds of enemies. They're so tough. They have a whip that can launch towards you from a long distance. They give out a small audio cue when they're about to puncture you, but it's hardly enough time to dodge. It's also funny how a lot of the trifecta runs in RE3, going for the 3 hardest achievements in one run, have expressed their inability to dodge these guys as well, and they're more often than not a run killer. With dodging in this game, it's all about when you press the button. It feels inconsistent as to when you actually dodge properly or not. I've noticed it's right when you're about to be swung on that dodging will work. But again, it's very finicky. These enemies also have an interesting function. They can detect when you're aiming for their head and protect it with its head crab-esque legs, making headshots much harder. However, if you shoot the zombie limbs and knock it down, it will expose itself, making critical damage easier, with additional weak points being right behind them. So if they turn around for any reason, you can get a quick kill off. Exiting out and attempting to head back to the subway station, we spot Nemesis again. And it seems he's the one behind these tentacle head freaks, as he can make them from his something. And he does so right in front of us. And I again show how adept I am at dodging this guy, as I easily roll past him and continue forward with no problems at all. As I'm running away though, he does show off another move he has, the ability to grab you with his tentacle and drag you towards him. You can roll off and continue moving. It's an interesting move, as when he first did it to me I was expecting a ground slam or something, but instead he kind of just stands there, and then gets pissed when I run away. It's a cool mechanic honestly in concept, having him randomly pull you towards him, especially if there's other enemies in the nearby area. But again, the game doesn't use this form of Nemesis much, so there's not much to elaborate on here. We arrive back at the subway station while using Nemesis's second biggest foe, a steel shutter gate, to prevent him from following us any further. Meeting back up with Carlos, he tells us that the train will be good to go in 30 to 40 minutes after maintenance. And then Nikolai appears. He asks why we're here, saying we're weak, talking about how we'll slow everyone down with our indecisiveness. Boy, I sure wonder if he's the bad guy. Nah, he seems too nice for that. As we're gonna head back down, Nemesis breaks through the gate eventually and heads towards the duo. With Jill knowing that he's only going after her, she potentially sacrifices herself by going another direction, having Nemesis chase after her. We are pursued by him, barely managing to escape by opening up Media's strongest vent cover to leave, and we're introduced to a new area, the sewers. Look familiar? Yeah, it's from Resident Evil 2. Now, I'm no stranger to content reusage. I've played Destiny 2. It can be beneficial, and I know that these devs are often working to the bone to get the game out in time. So smart recycling of content can be good. It can add a lot of length to a game, and if it's tasteful, I have no problem with it. So let's, I'm done? That was about 14 minutes of time spent in the sewers. Huh. Okay. To be fair to this game, there is a new enemy design. These giant toads that you have to shoot in their mouths when they open it up. It is pretty freaky, and I love seeing those weird ass designs that you wouldn't typically see elsewhere, showing how the virus can infect everything and turn them alien and terrifying. And there's another light puzzle with a battery pack that you can use on doors to open them. But there's just like 2 doors that you have to open, so I guess it's a puzzle. Alongside acquiring the grenade launcher in the sewers, he carries 3 different ammo types: fire, explosive, and acid. The damage doesn't matter much on standard, as any of these will be enough to take out anything. But as for the sewers, it's such a weird location, because I'm sure a lot of time went into making this as beautiful as possible. Well, I mean, as beautiful as a cesspit can be, I assume. But it's over so fast that I almost forgot about this section while writing my script. It's that much of a nothing burger. I mean, for comparison, the sewers in my first playthrough of RE2 took around an hour and a half, so it's just weird that they reuse this environment and do nothing to add to it, make it even a little bit longer. Now, I'm not trying to advocate for artificial padding, especially in games where it goes overboard and makes it like 10 times worse, but when an area is over that quickly, you need to do something about it. Especially when you're charging, again, $40 for it, but whatever. We leave the sewers and oh my god, hi Nemesis. Oh, he's here to help us up the ladder, how nice. And also, while you were faffing about in the sewers, he went and got himself a flamethrower. And he's thinking that Jill's sandwich might need a little cooked meat added onto it. So you have to escape the flames by running up the construction building to the top. In a scene very similar to that from one of those Tomb Raider games or Uncharted, where it's very bombastic with a lot of visual eye candy with the flames rising up further and further, until you get to the top where Nemesis shows up in the first boss fight with him. So, he's got a lot of fire-based attacks here. One where he can do a big swing with its flamethrower, dispelling heat and burning Jill. Then another where he can slam it down, creating an area of effect with his flames, damaging you if you're caught in between it. He also has 2 phases to this fight. For the first, he has the flamethrower backpack on. His attacks are much slower, but he will shoot out fire, making it hard to get close. If you blow his backpack up either by shooting it or a well-timed grenade, it will explode, encasing him in fire. In this phase, he's a lot faster and will attempt to shorten the gap and do more close-range attacks. But a few grenade launcher shots and grenades will be enough to take him down and end this fight. Overall, I think it's a pretty decent fight. It ramps up the stakes and the arena shrinks in size as the fire engulfs more of the building. Good job, Capcom. You get a gold star. With Nemesis finally dead, we have to escape down the side of the building and survive a fall that would put any other person out for several months. Luckily, Jill has a titanium cranium, so we're good. With us reporting back to Carlos that
Bastard's dead.
Good. Fuck him.
With Carlos reporting back that the train is good to go, so we should head back and take off. And wow, do you guys remember this? It's outside the RPD! Epic Resident Evil 2 reference, you guys. I'm okay with this for now, as the sewers were distinctive enough to be their own thing, and this does shed some more light on Kendo and his gun shop. I neglected to mention this in the Resident Evil 2 video, but Jill does leave a message in the gun shop, addressed towards the owner of the shop. In RE2, we see that his daughter's infected with the virus, slowly turning. When Jill arrives, we see no mention of his daughter. But as the conversation goes on, since we've played the second game and know what's going on, we understand why Kendo is so adamant about not leaving yet, with Jill telling him that they have a train ready to go with survivors to get out of this town, but with Kendo refusing, stating he'll make other arrangements. While the conversation is going, you can see that his attention is staunchly drawn to the door his daughter is behind, clearly showing the audience without telling them that he doesn't want to leave her behind, as nobody would accept an infected child aboard the train. I like this a lot again. Great job, Capcom. You know, maybe this won't be so bad after all. He allows us to take a key to access the back alley of the shop, letting us head back down to the subway. So we continue and...
It's you! It's you!
Yeah, he's not dead yet. And now, he's really pissed. So he's gonna use his rocket launcher against us, in the most intense chase scene of moving away from the line I've ever seen. Okay, again, to be fair, I do enjoy the variations they've shown of Nemesis so far. with each one being unique enough to keep the experience feeling fresh. Once again though, I do wish you had more initial time of Nemesis chasing you around without weaponry to really contrast and highlight how more effective his equipment is, but I digress. Now, I'm not one to argue about realism in a franchise where you can roundhouse kick your enemies, parry chainsaw blows with a knife, and survive falls from ridiculous heights, but that definitely should have killed her, right? No, just me? Okay. Anyways, we eventually escape the chase and head down into the subway, where everyone is ready to go. Unfortunately, Carlos can't come with Jill, as they have new orders to find and locate Nathaniel Bard, as he's working on a vaccine, one that could potentially save the entire city. Jill boards the train and they're off. Nikolai further driving home the idea of saving oneself, that self-preservation is the only thing that matters in this world. A nice sentiment, one that Jill will surely think on later. As the train leaves, we get one last look at Carlos, with Jill and him exchanging glances. A while later, as they're heading out of the city, the train is derailed. By who? I'm sure you can guess that it's Nemesis once again. Nikolai proves that he's willing to do anything to keep himself alive by locking the train doors, preventing Jill and the platoon leader from leaving. The leader is quickly grabbed by Nemesis, but he has a quick plan, as he carries C4 with him and blows himself up, shaking the train and throwing it off the tracks. Jill is tossed around violently, then passes out. We jump to Carlos. They believe Nathaniel Bard is being held at the RPD. Oh. So, wait, you're telling me, in a game that took me about 3.5 hours to beat, which I wasn't even going that fast, I was playing pretty normal, exploring mostly everything, with essentially half of the game's runtime being dominated by areas you've already been to before, including the fact the RPD isn't even changed that much. It is the exact same as it was, minus a blow-upable wall. $40 is how much you're being charged for this. $40 for a game that shamelessly reuses content to pad out its already abysmal runtime. Now, I'm sure if you wanted to, you could argue that the value is also because it's bundled with Resident Evil Resistance, an online multiplayer game. And sure, whatever. So let's play that, shall we? Oh wait, the lobbies are full of cheaters and the game is essentially abandonware, as Capcom refuses to do anything with this game. Cool, awesome. So I'm not going to factor this into the price, as if you do tend to find a match, it's more often than not unplayable due to the rampant glitching and hacking. I said earlier that if you're going to reuse content, do it smartly, and the RPD is the exact same as it was before. It has to be, as this is a prequel, it needs to follow the continuity of the game, so the level design is the exact same, minus enemy spam to make you use your ammo. More often than not in this game, I just chunk the damage and run ahead, as it seems the game will give you a few small seconds of invincibility frames. I've already gone to the lengths about the ammo economy in this game, so we'll just continue forward. Although, an aspect I do like regarding the RPD is how it shows the initial scene where Marvin Brown gets bit by Brad. The two appear to have worked closely together, and because Brad is infected, Marvin has to put him down. But who can do that to their friends?
Oh man, not you too. Sorry.
I think that this is a pretty good scene. It highlights how there may still be some resemblance of the person they once knew. This gives Marvin pause, however, time that the zombie uses to their advantage, with Brad taking a bite out of Marvin. This is good, and actually elaborates on Resident Evil 2 a bit more with how Marvin initially got bit. We get into the Star's office and find that your princess is in another castle. Bard is actually inside the hospital. But before we can head out, it turns out that Carlos got a call from Jill, where she explains that the train flipped. So Carlos races out to help Jill. We jump back to Jill. She survived the crash with only a few minor injuries. Crawls out of the wreckage to head outside. We get introduced to a new fourth type of ammo for the grenade launcher, the mine rounds. Makes me wonder if we're gonna do a boss fight soon. Exiting the tunnels, we head out and hear the Nemesis's roars, with Jill commenting that he's still out there, and we gotta get a move on. As we climb the stairs, we get a glimpse of Nemesis burning and jumping into the river. Luckily,
Bitch can't even swim.
now that still gets a laugh out of me, and it's a great line. For all the crap I've given this game, I think they did the characterization of their characters well. I love the sassiness Jill has. And Carlos is so sweet, actively helping Jill out, even though he has no reason to. For how short the game is, it sure can endear the audience to the characters incredibly quickly. Continuing on, Jill continues across the bridge, radioing Carlos and indulging the information, before...
What the fuck?
Jill, what happened? Jill, come in!
Guess the bitch can swim. Luckily, we pull out one of his biggest weaknesses, wooden boards, and drop them onto him, giving us just enough time to leap off the bridge onto the floor, with Nemesis following closely behind. Here we start the second fight with Nemesis. I like how the area is naturally enclosed by all the rubble and piled up cars, a neat way to use the environment to the devs' advantage. It reinforces the idea of the city being in shambles, and also naturally creates a barrier, preventing the player from going any further. In this encounter, just like the previous, they have two phases, one where it's close ranged and melee focused, the other where it will run along the walls before pouncing on top of you to damage. The only way to interrupt it is by firing one of those mine rounds on the wall. When it touches it, the round will explode, launching the monster off the wall onto the ground, allowing you to damage it. Doing enough damage will eventually trigger a cutscene where Jill uses a grenade launcher incredibly close to her. I mean, it's so close it should be damaging her. Finally though, Nemesis is defeated, never to appear again. It's a shame, as I liked him so much. Oh well. Okay, now Nemesis is definitely dead. He's like the deadest guy of all time. And then Nikolai shows up and mumbles something to himself that Jill definitely cannot hear as she's choking on her own spit right now. Anyway, Carlos arrives half a day later to Jill's infected, unconscious body. That virus takes a while to gain control of someone, huh? Carlos is such a bro though that he carries Jill all the way to the hospital where hopefully the vaccine lies. Now, this may be harsh, but I genuinely consider the hospital to be the worst area in any of the Resident Evil games I've played. And yes, I've played Resident Evil 7 and endured the ship. Now, why do I hate it so much, you ask? Well, take all of what I loved about the RPD in Resident Evil 2. In that game, the environment is tense in there, and the lack of enemies adds to this, where you can make immediate decisions about whether you want to use ammo on this foe or not. Ammo is plentiful enough to where you can reliably kill a few zombies in your way, but use too much and you will run out of it, prioritizing strategic usage of your arsenal. Unlike the hospital segment, in which the environment is hardly tense, with rooms that are well illuminated, and in them you will encounter the most bullet-spongy enemies, and a lot of them. The game hardly gives you enough ammo to deal with half the room, and it's not fun to have to constantly run past enemies, as you can't deal with them effectively. And don't even get me fucking started on the hunters. If you want to talk about bullet sponges, these guys soak up more than one whole magazine of the assault rifle, so if you want to reliably kill them, good luck. Sucks that you can't use Jill's arsenal in this part, as it really would make it so much easier. I get that they wanted to show the disparity between Carlos and Jill, with them having different weapons, just like how in Resident Evil 2, with both characters in that game wielding different guns, but it instead feels incredibly limiting, as Jill's weaponry really is incredibly effective at dealing with these enemies, as opposed to Carlos's, who is not. You need a balance to make the gunplay satisfying and worthwhile, and this game fails at that. When you don't need it, the game gives you too much ammo. When you finally need it, you realize that there's nothing. I despise this part even worse than the police department, because at least there you had the level design from RE2 to make it a bit more bearable. But even then, it suffers a lot of the same elements as this area, even if the hospital is worse. So, safe to say, it was a lovely experience that I thoroughly enjoyed. But finally, after trudging through all that, we arrive at Bard's office, only to find out that he was shot and killed. Either he did it himself, or it was a rogue Umbrella agent. I tend to point to the latter, as in a recording on his computer, he discusses how the pharmaceutical company was behind the outbreak of the virus. And while he's talking, he looks around, quickly shutting the recording off once he thinks someone's in there with him. Unfortunate, but that's fine, as we find the vaccine and are able to head back to administer it to Jill. Next, Tyrell appears, who's Carlos's partner, dropping quite the bombshell, literally, as Raccoon City is set to be blown up on October 1st, which is only a day away. But before they can discuss their actions further, zombies break into the building, and we have to do a little bit of a horde defense mission. Yes, waves of zombies will pour in, and you have to prevent them from breaking into the room in which Tyrell and Jill are in. We essentially have to hold them off until Tyrell can hack into the security systems and lower the shutters. There's no time limit though, so from what I can tell, it's all about killing the enemies. Now, it seems like the engine definitely was not made with these enemies in mind, as once they die, they will just explode and disappear. I'd prefer this than the game stuttering like a 2008 Bandicam stream, but still a bit weird. After enough enemies have been killed, the shutters are closed, but a large amount of them continue to pour through the entrance, so Carlos has to arm a bomb to blow a pillar up so it can collapse on the door, barring the entrance from anyone trying to get in. Now, shockingly, I don't hate this section. The game does provide enough resources so that you aren't struggling, and you can shoot these generators to electrocute the enemies, which allows you to get a few shots in them while they're stunned. So it is one of the few parts I can say actually works on its own, where some skill is required to complete the section. After that is done and dusted, Carlos returns back into the room where Jill is at. It looks like the vaccine is working on her, as the veins on her neck have gone away. There, they hatch a plan on how to save Raccoon City and get out of there. They're going to contact the government, telling them they have vaccines and attempt to stall for time while Carlos goes down to their labs and retrieves them. Jill wakes up after another nightmare, where Carlos is infected and turns on her. Honestly, it's just such a nothing burger of an addition. I appreciate them trying to get the idea across to the viewer that Jill's terrified of the apocalypse, but it really doesn't match when she's running around being sassy and charismatic. You can't have it both ways. You either lean into the camp or lean into the trauma of the viral outbreak. Anyway, she wakes up and heads outside of the room, where Tyrell is attempting to establish contact with the government, but he's gotten no response. So Jill heads down to the factory to find Carlos and the vaccine. She arrives at the labs, spotting Nikolai high up behind a glass wall. Before she can take the elevator to catch up to him, the power goes out. So now, she has to find 3 fuses to activate the elevator. And here's where you encounter the final enemy in this game, Paleheads. They actually first appeared in Resident Evil 2's side content as harder zombies. Their whole gimmick revolves around that. If you go for body shots, you can't kill them, but a well-placed headshot will put them down for good. So, that makes for 8 enemies in total, not counting Nemesis and his other forms that you fight throughout the game. 4 of them coming from the previous games. So that means half of the enemies are reused in this game. It's not like they changed the behaviors of the enemies either to fit more with RE3. No, they still act exactly the same. I would like to remind you once again, they charged $40 for this game and reskinned or reused half of the enemies from RE2, with a good chunk of the levels also being used from RE2. Cool. Regardless, we get all those fuses and slot them, taking the elevator up, where we don't find Nikolai, with us reading his documents where he reveals he's been selling training data of our fights. Then the elevator comes back up where Tyrell appears. He tells us the government is willing to negotiate if we deliver the vaccine to them before the missiles launch. The mission is clear. We need those vaccines. Raccoon City and its citizens are relying upon it. With no time to waste, we hurry down to where they could be kept, before Nemesis shows up, piercing Tyrell and killing him instantly. We have to escape, shutting this gate behind us so Nemesis can't follow. Nitpick, I know, but man, that gate is such a huge health hazard. It shuts down way too fast. Someone's head can be taken off if they slip. We make our way into the labs, where we need to synthesize a vaccine by acquiring an antigen and adjuvant. Before I continue, I just want to talk about how good the labs look. I do love a bit of environmental storytelling, and here you can see where they were working on Mr. X, with Chambers holding prototypes of him, and also the hunters, which are definitely not still alive. With the antigen acquired, we need the adjuvant. Killing some more enemies would grab it, heading down to synthesize a cure. So aw man, damn, guess we gotta kill him. Afterwards, we head back and get that cure, so now we can go back and develop it. After doing just that, Nemesis grabs Jill, throwing her off the balcony onto the floor. Dazed, she gets up and attempts to escape, but Nemesis follows, grabbing onto her. Smartly, Jill decides to explode the barrel right next to Nemesis, with him dropping her, and she's able to escape before the entire room explodes. We continue, and are eventually ambushed by Nemesis again, where he nearly flings us off the platform, but luckily Nikolai is here to— No. What are you doing? Nikolai, no! He steals the virus and says that essentially he'll give it back to us if we put on a good enough show against Nemesis, so he can sell the combat data. If it's a fight he wants, then I guess we don't have a choice. We need that vaccine. So here's the third fight against Nemesis. It functions very similarly to the second fight, with a few key differences. When Nemesis begins to run along the walls, it will choose a tank to hide behind. Carlos will call them out to Jill, and if you shoot them down, it will electrocute the monster and throw them onto the floor, allowing them to be damaged. And when Nemesis runs along the walls, zombies will drop from the arena, as a potential threat if you aren't careful. It switches up the fights, and now your attention is focused on both them and the infected, making it quite difficult. The other thing making this difficult is the fucking camera. Go away! Knock him down and damage him enough times and the fight's over. Okay, Now he's definitely dead. As acid pours over him, boiling him and dissolving him, he's most definitely dead. We race back to Nikolai, where we demand him to give the vaccine back.
It's done. Give me the vaccine, you greedy son of a bitch.
No. You bring money. I like money. We shall make ours an ongoing arrangement. Now drop the gun!
And uh-oh, Nemesis isn't dead! Luckily, we have room in the budget for just one more battle against Nemesis, as we send Carlos after Nikolai and leave Nemesis to ourselves. This boss fight is unique in that it's pretty fucking easy. You essentially get a BFG to shoot Nemesis with, but each use requires you to push the power cells back into place. He can be stunned if you shoot his pustules that appear from him. They also spit out acid, but I have yet to be damaged by them. When he's stunned, go ahead and power up those cells. Rinse, repeat, shoot him twice, and the fight is over. This one is more about spectacle than actual intense mechanics. The music that plays is such a banger too. It does feel kind of cathartic to kill this enemy that's been tormenting you all game. But again, the game's so short, you don't really get to feel that, so in the end it feels incredibly unearned as you're left wanting more from this guy and his encounters. Anyway, having blasted a hole through him, he's absolutely 100% in no way still alive, right? I mean, there's no way. Thankfully, it seems like yes, it is the last of him, and we race to connect back up with Carlos. When we get there, we see Carlos lying motionless on the ground, with Nikolai taking us by surprise and knocking us to the ground as well. He taunts us by throwing the vaccine and immediately shooting it. This action has doomed the city, as the government won't get their vaccine, so they'll reduce this place to rubble. Turns out Nikolai was playing the long game though, as the whole reason why he's been doing what he's been doing is to reduce Umbrella to rubble, and by extension, the whole city. But before Nikolai can deal the killing blow to Jill, Carlos ambushes him, having a bit of a tussle. Boys will be boys. Before...
Jill! Shoot him!
I can't! I'll hit you!
Do it! You have to! There's no other way.
Actually, I do think there's about a few more ways this could go.
Carlos!
Hey, I told you I couldn't leave you in a Carlos's world. That would just be too cruel.
Luckily, Carlos had extra padding on and won't leave Jill in a cruel, cold, Carlos-less world, with the two taking off with the helicopter, leaving Nikolai to die. As she watches Raccoon City crumble to the bomb, she promises then and there that she won't stop until she stops Umbrella permanently. And that concludes the story of this game. And wow, what a story. There sure were characters, and a plot did happen too, I'm pretty sure. I would say that the defining trait of this game is messiness. And overall, it's just not as tight-knit as the other game. If my complaints in the previous video were about the length of it, well, this one is so much worse. From shameless reusing of assets from previous titles to a non-existent antagonist, this game has it all. It truly deserves that title of Black Sheep in the Remake trilogy. Now the gameplay is probably the brightest part of this package, and that doesn't even fully feel fleshed out, where it feels that enemies take way too much damage for how little ammo you're given, alongside most of the combatants also just being from another game that utilizes them much better. I think that it was interesting to have Nikolai's whole thesis being self-preservation above all else. That Jill in the end does prove him wrong with that ideal, but also proves him right. She proves him wrong in that Jill spends a lot of the game trying desperately to kill herself, with her going out of her way to help others, often to the detriment of herself, while still surviving the situation, and proving Nikolai right in that she abandons him, leaving him to die, preserving herself and Carlos in the meantime. I don't think it was particularly well executed on its own, and it tries desperately to tell you this as he brings it up pretty much every time you see the guy, but I commend the attempt at least. Now, I know with how scathing this review has been, you'd probably guess that I didn't like it, right? Well, even a bad Resident Evil game is still pretty decent in my eyes, and even if I didn't hate it, I still can't deny all the problems it has. As for a rating, I'd leave it with a 6 Carloses out of 10. The shift from survival horror to action horror has always been interesting to me, and you'll see as the franchise goes on that they continually fall into this trap time and time again, where it feels like one title may be survival horror at its best, then they trade that all for a schlocky action thriller in the next release. And the shift into more of an action-focused game is apparent, leading well into one of the best games in the franchise that cemented its legacy forever. And of course, I'm talking about Resident Evil Survivors to its Resident Evil 4. It's Resident Evil 4. Thanks for watching, everyone. As you can see with this video, it is way longer than every other video I've made, probably combined. I'm working on this new style of content, so let me know if this more summary style worked out for y'all. I did try to make it anecdotal, so it sounded less like I'm just reading the script of the game. So definitely don't hesitate to comment and tell me if I did a great job or a terrible job. And if you liked it, don't forget to leave a like. And if you subscribed it, don't forget to subscribe. Have a good night, everyone, and a good week.